Welcome, everybody, to episode 1 of Photo Finish. I'm your host, Steve-O. I'm very excited to start this new podcast dealing with everything horse racing. Whether you are a first time bettor or you are somebody that's been going to the track since you were 8 years old, I hope that you will find something useful in this podcast. Go subscribe everywhere you get your podcast. Be on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. There will be a video version on YouTube. So go subscribe, smash those like buttons, share it with your friends, download it. Hope you find something useful. I'm your host, Steve-O. This is just passion of mine, a hobby of mine. I've always been interested in horse racing. My friends say that I'm a little bit of a degenerate gambler. Maybe so. But horse racing is the one thing that I keep coming back to time after time, and it's running nearly 24/7 these days. Got friends that stay up and play horses till 2 or 3 in the morning, watching the Aussies run. You can watch them a lot of times on TVG. You know, the Euros are running early morning, and then you got the U.S. tracks during the day time for us Americans. So pretty much 24/7, you can find some action. This podcast is going to be a couple parts to it. First part is going to be educational. I want to give you something to make you a better handicapper, whether that's news and notes or, just betting tips, whatever I can come up with. I want to throw that out to you. The second part of the podcast is going to be dealing with upcoming races. What do we have coming up? Let's look at a preview of some of those races, what's on the docket in the next few weeks, month out. Hopefully, we'll be getting these podcasts out fairly regularly. I wouldn't say there's any specific time frame. It's just going to be whenever there's big news in the horse racing world or when there's some big races coming up. So we'll go over the schedule a little bit later. I want to start out for those of you that may not be familiar with horse racing, just giving you a little bit of some background. So you go to a track, you go to a sports book. Now a lot of states are legalizing gambling, so you can bet online. For those of us that are not in a state where it's legalized yet, we still have to bet offshore, and it's becoming more and more prevalent, more and more ways to bet. But you got to know how to bet and what you're betting, or you can lose a lot of money really quick. I'm going to run down some different types of wagers for you. The most common wager, the easiest one to make, is a win, play, show bet. So you can bet on the winner of the horse. That's self-explanatory. Horse number that wins, you win based on the closing odds that it goes off at. So, for instance, you pick a horse that wins, it's 5-1. You make a $2 wager, which is the standard wager for a win bet. Then that's going to return 5-1 on your money. So a $2 bet will win you $10 on total. Second type is a place bet. Horse has to come in first or second. Again, depending on the odds, depends on the payout. Higher the odds, the better the payout if it comes in first or second. Show bet has to come in first, second, or third. So again, higher the odds, better the payout, especially if it comes in third. Now, if it wins, you get a better payout on that bet. So win, play, show, that's your most simplest bet to make if you're new to horse racing. You start getting into a little more complicated bets. They're called exotics. Exotics, first one is an exacta. So you have to pick the horses that are going to come in first or second place in that order. So if you like the 5 horse and the 8 horse, you say, I think the 5 horse is going to win, bet them to come in first and bet the 8 horse to come in second. Where you're going to run into trouble is if the 8 horse wins and the 5 comes in second and you didn't box it, then you're not going to win that bet. So you can bet a straight exacta, which is the exact finish, or you can bet the exacta box. And if you box the bet, it means that the horses can come in any order. So first and second, any order, but you're doubling your bet amount. So again, typical exacta bet is $2. You can bet, check the track. Usually there's a minimum amount on those types of bets, but you can bet up to $100 on exacta if you want to. Might not necessarily be a thing because again, you're picking the exact order. So exacta box, You're betting on either first or second, but you're doubling your bet. So a $2 exacta box is going to cost you $4, but the horses can come in first, second in any order. Moving down the line, you got a trifecta. So a trifecta is a bet where you're picking the first three horses. So you like the 5 and the 8? How about the 2? Let's add the 2 in there. And they have to come in 5, 8, 2 in order for you to win your bet. Again, just like the exacta, you can box it. So, typical trifecta bet is either 50 cents or a dollar, depending on minimums at the track. A 50-cent trifecta box is going to cost you $3. You can bet, and that gives you any order, any finish. So the 2 could come in first, 5 second, 8 third. You're going to win that bet based on a 50-cent base bet. Again, dollar bet. If you box it, it's going to cost you $6. So on and so on. You can add more than 2 or 3 horses to those bets. So if you want to make an exacta with 3 horses, you can do that. Again, just costs you more money because you're betting on different combinations, first and second. Some other, these are called exotics. So anything after a straight win place show bet, or you may hear the term exotics. So exacta, trifecta. Next one down is superfecta. So again, just like the exact and trifecta, you got to pick the horses come in first, second, third, and fourth. So getting a little bit more complicated, a little bit difficult to hit depending on how many horses are running the race. You can have a 5-horse race and think you can pick 4 horses. You may be able to, but it's probably not going to pay anything. So more horses in the race, the better a superfecta is going to pay. Again, just like the exacta and the trifecta, you can box those horses. So if you pick you have 4 horses in a race you like, 5, 8, 2, and the 7. We're going to throw those into a superfecta box. They can finish in any order, and you'll get paid. Typical superfecta bet, a lot of tracks will let you do a 10-cent superfecta. So if you pick 4 horses and they come in any order, a 10-cent superfecta box is going to cost you $2.40. Obviously, the more horses you add to that, the more expensive it's going to be, and they can add up pretty quick. Moving down the line, some tracks offer a super high 5. That's just like it says, first 5 horses in any order. Those bets typically pay very well if you can get them. Not all tracks offer them. I know Gulfstream Park in Florida is one that typically will offer a super high 5, and they'll have guaranteed payouts. But again, they've got to have a certain number of who's running in the race. Another type of bet that's available at certain tracks, you got to check the track, is the Quinella. Again, it's not widely available. Not every track has the Quinella bet, but it's like an exacta, but you can put a $2 Quinella bet down, and you're picking 2 horses to come in first and second in any order, or more. You can bet a $2 Quinella with 3 horses is going to cost you $6. So it just uh, adds to the more horses you pick, the more it's going to cost you. But again, you just need first, second place, any order. Payout is a little bit different than the exacta because you're depending on the pools. We'll talk about that another day. Where you got pari-mutuel betting based on the number of bets that are taken. So the offshore gambling sites are not connected to pari-mutuel betting, but you're still going to get the pari-mutuel payouts. Usually, they will cap you though. So if you hit a real large superfecta, you may not get the full payout. So check on the house rules on that. But any legitimate sports book, they're going to be involved in what's called pari-mutuel wagering. So you get the odds of the horse at the time the race closes. When it goes off, you're sharing in all the pools. So every track around the country is taking in this money and participates in the pools. And depending on the type of race and the type of bet you're making, will depend on the ultimate payouts for the exactas, the trifectas, the quinellas, that type of thing. The win play show bets are always based on the odds, but payouts can be a little bit better depending on how many people are betting on certain horses. So there's not an exact science to it. I gave the example earlier of $2 win bet on a horse that's 5-1, payout $10. That's good rule of thumb. Usually it'll pay out $10 or 20 cents, something a little bit more. Just again depends on the amount that's in the betting pool. Some sites are starting to offer fixed odds on horse races. So for big races like Kentucky Derby, Preakness Stakes, Belmont, you might be able to find, you like a horse ahead of time, the site may give you, say, a favorite. Earlier in the week, you may be able to get it 3-1, whereas when the race closes, they're 3-2, that type of thing. You may be able to get fixed odds some places. When you look at racing form, and we're going to get into that in our next episode, I'm going to teach you how to read a racing form, but you look at a racing form, they're going to have odds, and you'll see M/L stands for morning line. So some guy, probably in a cubicle someplace, is looking at past performances of these horses and setting odds. The morning line odds are basically his estimated odds for where the horses are going to close. I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock in morning line odds. It's basically just a starting point. You know what value you're getting when the race opens. But again, we're talking about pari-mutuel wagering, so it doesn't matter what value you get when the race opens, it's when the race closes. So, it's usually a pretty good indicator of which horses are going to be popular bets, but it's not the end all be all. So I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock in morning line odds. So those are some types of exotics that you can bet at at tracks, wherever gambling is legal, or even offshore where it's not. Some of the other types of wagers are multi-race wagers. So you'll usually see, again, depending on the race, depending on the track, it'll tell you what wagering options are available. But most common, the daily double. So you're picking the winner of race one. You also have to pick the winner of race two. You know, you can pick one horse to win one race, one horse to win the next race. They both have to win. $2 daily double bet will pay you out based on the odds of both of those horses. Most people will add in multiple horses. So, you pick one or two horses you like in every race, and then you got your daily double card going forward. Again, it's a lot. It's tough to pick one winner, much less back-to-back winners. But it will pay you better again, depending on the odds that the horse goes off at when the first race closes. That will close the daily double pool. So it depends on the amount of wagers, depends on the amount of dollars wagered. It's going to determine your payout if you hit two winners in a row. The next multi-race bet is the pick three. Just like the daily double, you're picking the winner of three races in a row. Thought picking back-to-back winners is hard. Try picking three in a row. Again, check with your track, but common wager on a pick three is 50 cent. Pick three, you can do dollar pick three. Depends on how many horses you like in each race. Depends on how risk averse you are. These multi-race bets are a good way to blow a lot of money quickly, especially when you get into pick fours, pick fives, and pick sixes. So those are all types of multi-race wagers that are offered at different tracks. Not every race is eligible for those. A lot of times they'll have daily doubles and pick threes going all the time. So first race up until the last three races of the card, or sometimes the last four races of the card. A lot of the tracks though will have pick fives and pick sixes starting somewhere in the middle of the card towards the end of the card, and you get into a lot higher payouts there. I know Gulfstream Park, that's the one I watch a lot. They have a free stream online, so you can always go to their website and watch races for free without having to pay anything. They're not sponsoring this podcast, but that's the track I like to watch. Pull it up when I just have a few minutes to watch a race. But they have a guaranteed pick six pool that goes pretty much all the time, where a 50 cent pick six card where you got to pick six winners in a row will often pay out 500,000. But yeah, you got to pick six winners in a row, which isn't always easy. And if all the favorites hit, you're probably not going to have a unique card. So that pool's split up between the number of people that hit the pick six pick six winners. So you know you may be sharing 500,000 with 1,000 people, which is still good payout. But it just depends on how many people have that ticket. So those are the most common types of bets that you'll find at different racetracks throughout the country and throughout the world. But those are kind of your standard. So you're at a track, you want to place a wager. How do you place the wager? So a lot of tracks, obviously, you can go up to the ticket writer, or a lot of tracks are starting to have do-it-yourself machines, or you can go up and you know, select what track you want, what race you want, what type of bet you want to make, and then pick your horses, and it'll tell you how much the ticket's going to cost. But if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, you go up to a ticket writer at the sports book or at the track. You tell them, just because you're at one track doesn't mean you can't make bets at other tracks. So you tell them the track you want to bet. You tell them the race number you want to bet, and you tell them the type of bet you want to make, and then you tell them the horse numbers. So, for example, I'm betting the Kentucky Derby. So Churchill Downs, race number, I think it was 12 this year, may have been 13. Exacta box, 4 and 5. You know, however many horses you want to put in, those are your horse numbers. You know, Belmont Park, race 4, $10 win bet, 5. That it's that easy. Have your money ready to go. If it's not a crowded day, the ticket takers will help you make your bets and be patient with you. But if you're going on stakes day, a lot of people in line, have your money ready and be ready to go. Another common question: how do I know which horse to pick? Well, that's the $1,000,000 question, I think. And if I knew the answer to that, I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast because I'd be making lots and lots of money. There are a number of strategies when you determine which racehorse to pick when you're trying to pick a winner. We'll go over some of those in future episodes, but some people, simple as they like the name, they like the color of the horse, they like a certain number. End of the day, I found it comes into some preparation, but a lot of luck. As you start to become more and more familiar with horse racing, you'll get to know the jockeys, you'll get to know the trainers, you'll get to know the owners, and there are certainly at each track you'll learn that there are certain jockeys and trainers that perform better than others. You want to look at running style. What types of horses are in the race? Do you have a bunch of speed horses in the race? Do you have any closers? You want to look at track conditions. So each day that there's racing, the track will release track conditions. So, if it's on dirt, you'll get fast track conditions if the weather's good. If it's raining, you may get wet, sloppy. Turf races, you'll get firm, fast and firm, yielding are some of the typical types of conditions. If it's too wet and the turf gets too sloppy, they'll move races off turf. We'll get into that in another episode, but those are all different types of track conditions, and depending on the field of horses, you want to pay attention to that. But at the end of the day, how do you pick a winner? A little preparation, a lot of luck at the end of the day. So, one that's your educational part of this, and want to get into some news and notes and some upcoming races for you. We've already had the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness Stakes. I will be having another podcast come out the week of the Belmont Stakes. That's going to be your next big event, which is going to be June 5th from Belmont Park in New York. That is a little under 2 weeks from now. So that is the next big race coming up. Would be a couple of weeks, and we'll have some coverage right here for you on Photo Finish. The next big race after the Belmont is not until the middle of July, July 17th. It's the Haskell Stake. So, Haskell is normally at Monmouth Park, or it is at Monmouth Park this year. It's an invitation only. It's like the fourth best race of the year behind the Triple Crown races of the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, Lamont. Then you have the Haskell. So it usually draws a lot of the top horses. The question that I have about Haskell this year is who is going to run in it. Because the major news out of the horse racing world right now is the Monmouth Park meet, which is scheduled to start here in just a few days. There's been a lot of controversy. So Monmouth Park has announced that, I guess it's a new rule for the state of New Jersey, that they have banned jockeys from using a crop, so the whip. They are not going to be allowed to use the whip unless it's a issue of jockey safety. You may say, what's the big deal about that? There's there's two schools of thinking. The first school, which I tend to question, is horse comfort or equine treatment, and that's should jockeys be using the whip at all? Should you limit the number of uses of the whip? Should you ban the whip entirely? So, state of New Jersey banned the whip entirely. A lot of people in the horse racing industry, trainers and top jockeys, have come out and said this is absolutely awful rule. You can't ban the whip because it's a matter of jockey safety. And so you have a thoroughbred racehorse who weighs, I don't know what a racehorse weighs, to be honest with you, but it weighs a lot. And uh, how do the jockeys control these horses? They control them by the whip. By and large, when a horse tires, the only way to get them back in line or get them to where they need to be is with the whip. Sometimes you'll see a jockey just show them the whip, and that does enough to motivate the horse or get them to do whatever they want to do. But sometimes the jockeys actually have to use it. And so, how do you determine whether it's an issue of jockey safety or not? That's going to be an interesting issue that we need to monitor this summer. Monmouth Park's usually a pretty good track in the summer. They usually attract some top jockeys, especially this year. Like I said, the Haskell is supposed to be at Monmouth Park in July. That always, I mean, that brings the top horses and the top jockeys and a lot of prize money at stake. So what's going to happen? It still remains to be. We've got a couple of jockeys that have come out and said they're not riding at Monmouth Park at all. Joe Bravo was the leading one of the leading jockeys at Monmouth Park last summer. He said that he is not going to ride at all. Hall of Famer John Velasquez, Johnny V, has said, and I think he's actually the chairman of the Jockeys Guild. So the Jockeys Guild has come out strongly in opposition to this rule. And John Velasquez has said he will not ride at Monmouth Park while this rule is in effect. You've got some jockeys that said that they're going to boycott opening night. Monmouth Park came out today and said if you don't ride opening night, then we're going to ban you for the rest of the meet. So you're not going to have any mounts this summer, which is going to affect the jockeys' bottom line. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Whether the jockeys hold firm. They're talking about replacement jockeys. Obviously, the owners want the races because they have spent a lot of time and money putting into these horses, and the way they get their money back is if horses win races. And so the owners are going to want them to run. The trainers are a little bit more subdued in their comments. They're kind of taking a wait and see approach. I know that Kelly Breen is one of the top trainers at Monmouth, and he has come out and said that he's going forward with his horses. See what happens with the Haskell, especially if Monmouth continues to take the position if you don't ride opening day, that you're not going to ride at all this summer. So that's something to keep an eye on. Just right before I started recording, saw another article that said Monmouth may file a lawsuit against the Jockeys Guild for holding the riders out because if they don't get the top riders, they may not attract top horses, which is going to cost the track money in the long run. I don't know how you force somebody to participate in something that they don't agree with. And so if the jockeys don't like the rule and decide not to ride there, I mean, that's their prerogative. And I think the track's just out of luck. So it'd be interesting to see if anything happens with that lawsuit, if the top jockeys hold out. And I'll be interested to see whether the Haskell gets moved to a different track or whether it still runs. And if it does run, you're going to have replacement jockeys. You're going to have top name jockeys willing to run the race without being able to use the whip. That's going to be an interesting one. So, those are the news and notes around the horse racing industry. As I stated, we'll be back in a couple of weeks for a Belmont preview. I'll be throwing out some bets. Cannot guarantee they will be winners. They probably won't be, but I'll at least tell you how I'm looking at the card and if I see any value anywhere and how I see the race shaping up. Won't release that until we get the draws for the race, which I believe happens on Tuesday of race week. So Wednesday, Thursday, probably more like Thursday, Friday. Look for a podcast to drop Bet Week with Belmont Preview. We'll be back here shortly with another episode. The next one's going to deal with how to read a past performance. So if you go to the track, you can get a racing form. It's got all the past performance of the horses in the race, and it can be very intimidating for somebody that's never looked at one. You don't know what you're looking at, and I'll break that down in a future episode coming up and show you how to read one and some of the things that I look at when I'm handicapping a race. Probably want to not follow my advice, figure out things to look for yourself, but I'll tell you how I do it and see if we can pick some winners. So I appreciate you joining me. This has been episode 1 of Photo Finish. Look forward to bringing you many more episodes soon. So go subscribe anywhere you find podcasts. Go to YouTube, go to iTunes, go to Spotify, go to Google Play. And I appreciate you listening. Until next time, this is Photo Finish, and I'm Steve-O.